everyone, Kate here to do my review of the April-May, yes, read-along Most Victorian, which was Deerbrook by Harriet Martineau. And this was a reread for me, and actually I'm finding it really challenging to kind of get my thoughts together coherently for all of you. Since it is a reread, because I really had some things that I processed really differently as I was going through. And I'm thinking, when I think about the book, I think less about the plot, which I think the first time you go into a book, you're taking in everything that happens. As I'm thinking about what I think about the characters and the writing style, all of that. And so I will do my best to, tell you coherently what I think. But Deerbrook is about two sisters, Margaret and Hester, who are orphaned, but they are young ladies. So they are not, young children who have lost their parents. They're young women. Although, even though they are young women, they don't really have a way to earn their own income because this is the Victorian era. So they're cousins who live in the little town of Deerbrook because they live in the city of Birmingham. Decides that they think it would be a good time for them to come out to the calm of Deerbrook as a respite, and before they need to get their feet firmly on the ground to kind of decide what their next steps will be. And so they come to the village of Deerbrook, and this sets off a ripple effect because although Margaret is considered beautiful as well, Hester is kind of this radiant beauty that everyone seems to notice immediately whenever she comes into a room. They're taken aback by her beauty. And she just really just, many people are enamored with her very soon, very soon in. And so there are different people in the town who are wondering who will snap Hester up first. I think they wonder a bit about Margaret, but they're all focused on who will snap Hester up first. This also makes things complicated because there is a family who lives across the street from the Greys, whom are the cousins, the relatives that Hester and Margaret are living with. And Hester and Margaret have also brought their servant Morris with them. She's been very loyal to their family. They feel that she is a part of their family. And I ended up doing a Voxer chat group with Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space and Megan Hannett. And then my dear friend Claire, who has been a subscriber, and then we've become friends through chatting in messages and comments. And it was really interesting to hear their experience kind of going in because it was their first time reading it. So different things that took them by surprise in the plot, I was kind of ready for. And so it was really nice to hear, oh yes, this is coming next, and kind of to hear their reactions for that. And they all observed, I totally lost my train of thought. What did they observe? We were all commenting that we thought it was surprising that they would just bring their servant Morris without consulting the Greys, without asking them if they had room for her, but they did. But across the street from the Greys live the Rowland family, and the Rowlands, Mrs. Rowland in particular, she to me is like an evil version of Hyacinth Clare. Hyacinth, I think you can kind of say, from Wives and Daughters, sorry, I should have clarified. While you can kind of say Hyacinth is somewhat manipulative, she's not vindictive, whereas Mrs. Rowland, Priscilla Rowland, feels genuinely vindictive. And she is the antagonist kind of for this whole book. And it does feel very frustrating at times. This is a very Victorian novel in that several times there are problems, issues that happen, and you're like, if these characters would just sit down and have a conversation with each other instead of just kind of passing on the gossip along to one another, then we would have none of the stresses in this story. But therein lies a Victorian novel, is problems that it's too bold for them to talk about just up front, and they have to try to make their way as best they can. And Mrs. Rowland is very, very fearful that Hester is going to fall in love with her brother, and she is very bound and determined. She cannot stand the Greys. She has no regard for the Greys whatsoever, but kind of they put on like a friendly face like, hi, how are you doing? And then they're just like, oh, I can't stand them whenever they leave. And she really does not like that, her brother could possibly marry one of these girls. Her brother does not live in town, but he visits frequently because Mrs. Rowland's mother lives with the Rowland family, and so he comes to visit them. There is also an eligible doctor in town, and he immediately is taken with one sister. And I think, there's many, like I said, this is a very Victorian novel, so there are many themes in this, and I think duty is one of them. Like, how far should you go with what you think your duty is? I think reputation is another one, because reputation has a big part of this. Gossip and kind of life in a small town, how you can really destroy someone's life by spreading rumors. I'll let you guess as to who spreads the rumors in this. So all of the things that are really upsetting plot elements did unfortunately frustrate me a bit more this second time around, just thinking, oh, if only I could prevent this from happening. So I'll be curious, in a few years, I'm sure I'll want to read it a third time. How much will those plot elements frustrate me? Because I was surprised that I was as frustrated as I was, because this was not my first time going and reading it. It was a reread. I knew everything that was going to happen, but still the pain was there. But now, as I'm processing it, maybe part of it was that I cared even more for the protagonists in the story the second time around, and so I was very bothered at the troubles that were coming their way. And just how Mrs. Rowland is bound and determined on just having things her way. She's like a little kid that can't get its lollipop, and she's incredibly frustrating sometimes. Now, one thing that I found interesting the second time around is that the first time I read it, there was one sister that I said, she is my favorite sister reading this. But then the second time around, the flaws about the other sister that I really struggled with, I was prepared for those, and she felt a lot more human to me, and she has much more of a character arc. Whereas the other sister feels strong and steady, but I didn't see much of a journey with her character. So I found that a really kind of rewarding experience about a reread, that I might be taken with a different character the second time in. And also the servant Morris, I noticed her more in this one. She really is kind of the guardian angel of the family and looking out for them and a guiding light to them. I was very touched by the scenes that she is in. Harriet Martineau was a sociologist, so the kind of intensity of the relationships in this and how relationships have such ripple effects was really prominently placed in this. So Megan and Christy were so generous as to leave comments on my announcement video that I will read now, and I have not read these yet. Or I haven't read Christy's. I read Megan's earlier, but I will read Christy's first. It says, Deerbrook follows two sisters who leave their home city to stay with distant relatives in rural Deerbrook after the death of their father. Their family are dissenters, which means the locals take an immediate dislike to the sisters by association. And I should have addressed that before. That is an interesting thing. Also, religion is a big part of this story. These sisters, the Ibbotsons, Margaret and Hester's last name is Ibbotson, they are other, just by definition. By being dissenters and coming into this small community, it's like they already have to swim upstream to kind of make friends and to find a place for themselves in this community, where they're there for a sort of indeterminate amount of time. They just know they're coming to visit. They don't know how long they're going to stay. Then it says, although life in Deerbrook starts out with much excitement and promise, societal prejudice and a bad marriage soon bring unexpected trouble for the sisters. So they have some rocky times. The plot of this novel dramatically is the right word, Christy, portrays the damage that can be caused by public slander and calls for sympathetic service to and understanding for our neighbors, no matter how different from us they may be. The inner character arcs of this novel center largely on a difficult yet faithful marriage that blooms through care and determination. I love the handling of both these themes. I just love the way that Christy puts things, the way she words things. So the inner character arcs of the novel, and I love, yes, there is a difficult but faithful marriage, and that's something in the modern era we don't see a lot in books. We kind of see easy come, easy go. If you don't feel like you love someone, then just leave them. And just seeing the fidelity of this marriage is really, really touching, even when it's not easy. And then I think public slander is still something that's so relevant today. We can see a clip on social media. So somebody can put up a clip of someone behaving badly and their reputation can be destroyed forever. So people talk about classics, maybe they feel they're out of touch, and I think that's an incredibly relevant thing today. And then I also loved so many of the characters and their relationships, particularly a disabled character who is so gracious and wise in the midst of her suffering. And that there's great disability representation in this of a character who she keeps doing life. Even when it is harder for her every day physically to do the normal things, she just keeps going because she is so strong. And she's a really incredibly inspiring character. And then although certain characters acted superior at times, in my opinion, I still enjoy them and the story. So I don't want to give away too much, but I know exactly what Christy's talking about. And it can be frustrating. You feel that some of the characters just constantly have to be the bigger person and are never really able to give their full say. And it can be very, very frustrating. But it's still an incredibly enjoyable story. Then in addition, Martineau reflects beautifully and thoughtfully on many aspects of life, including grief, spirituality, and other topics. I saved lots of quotes from this novel. And then overall, Deerbrook constantly engaged me with moral problems, relational growth, and beautiful writing, and I was never bored. I just love hearing that. When someone says that about a Victorian novel, I was never bored. I do think this is an incredibly compelling book, and Christy filmed a fabulous Deerbrook review, which I will link in the comments section or in the description box of this video because you need to go see it. She brings out so many aspects of Deerbrook, and it's just wonderful. Then Megan left a lovely comment as well. And Megan said, I've got to say, I just love how Harriet Martineau took this plot to unexpected places. At first, I was surprised that Martineau didn't explore a love triangle subplot with certain characters, and that she married Hope off to a certain person. And at the end, I was surprised that not only did certain characters outlive the epidemic, but they also grew to love other characters. So I guess I decided kind of spontaneously to keep this video spoiler free. So if you've read Deerbrook, you can go to the announcement video and look at Megan's comment for more details. Yes, so I want to see if I can find my copy of Deerbrook so I can read you a couple of the quotes that I underlined. I cannot find my copy of Deerbrook, so I will just read a quote that Christy Lewis shared on her Instagram, and it is beautiful. It says, "While the world and life roll on and on, the feeble reason of the child of Providence may be at times overpowered with the vastness of the system amidst which he lives, but his faith will smile upon his fear, rebuke him for averting his eyes, and inspire him with the thought, 'Nothing can crush me, for I am made for eternity. I will do, suffer, and enjoy as my Father wills, and let the world and life roll on.'" So you can tell she definitely was a person of faith, having that perspective going in. And yeah, just so many beautiful quotes. So I definitely recommend Deerbrook. I didn't enjoy this more the second time going around, which is something I kind of hope and anticipate for classics, but I still really did enjoy it and was glad to revisit it. So I will be back for another video soon, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Bye.